This video is for people who are struggling to take consistent action upon the things that matter to them. There might be things that you know for a fact would benefit you, benefit other people, benefit your health, improve your life. There might be even things you want to do and you like doing while doing them, but for some unknown reason, you've been sort of dabbling. One step forward, two steps back, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You have a week where you might string together several days of productivity and you gain momentum and you feel like I'm finally getting it. And then for some reason, something knocks you off your square and then you have a difficult time getting back to it. And this cycle just repeats itself over and over and over and over again. And unfortunately, when this happens, it makes it harder and harder and harder to get back on the horse because you can't help but observe your own patterns and be skeptical that this time would be different. Why would this time be the time I finally stay consistent opposed to all the others? Now, what I found, my friend, for one, I relate with this. I've been through this and I've coached a lot of people through this. This is actually an easier fix than you might believe. You probably feel that you need to uncover all of your unconsciousness and heal all of your wounds, dissolve all of the emotional blocks so this resistance just stops coming. And then you can sort of smoothly and effortlessly and enjoyably take consistent action. I found that goal can take a long time. I've been going through a spiritual awakening for over 20 years and I'm not healed. The more I uncover, the more I realize is there. There are layers and layers and layers and layers to our wounds, to our blocks. And I think we'd all be waiting around a long time with this mentality. At the same time, you probably have also found that when you just go for it, and you have maybe a fleeting wave of motivation and determination where you get yourself pumped up just to do it, that's hard to sustain too. That energy sort of fizzles out and you find yourself at other times feeling kind of bored or vulnerable or unmotivated, and then you just can't muster up that gusto all the time to stay consistent. So what do? What does a person do? Well, my friend, that's what this video is all about. I've been coaching people for like 5 or 6 years. I've had the privilege of working with thousands of people, and almost every single one of them shares this. Many of which are now becoming entrepreneurs, where being consistent becomes very, very important. And oftentimes it's like the sticking point. And I know as a coach, if I can help them, if I can help you overcome this consistency dilemma, then there's really nothing you can't accomplish. The first thing a person must do, in my experience, is stop looking at it like this all or nothing thing. I'm going to meditate every single day at 6 a.m. for 30 minutes, no matter what. I got a calendar. I'm going to put little marks on each day when I finally do it. 8 days go by and I got momentum. It's becoming more natural. And then maybe you get sick and you can't breathe out of your nose and you're like, and you try to meditate, you wake up anyway, you try to meditate, but it's so miserable. I hate meditating when I'm sick. It's very difficult. And anyway, you miss one day. You miss one day, then another day because you're still sick. Then you finally feel better and you look at that calendar. And you feel like to start on day, say, 11, it's like starting over. It's like you blew it. You blew it. You ruined the momentum. And then because of that mentality, I blew it anyway. What's the difference? What's another day? What's another week? I'll get to it the first of next month, I'll get to it. Then our mind starts doing this dance of justifying our inaction, and it's all predicated on this false all or nothing concept. If you meditate 8 days in a row and you skip 2 and then you meditate that next day, you're talking 9 out of like 12 days or whatever, 9 out of 11 days. Not bad. And you don't get sick every 10 days anyway. So likely you're going to be at like maybe the, say, 80 percentile range this month. And imagine over the next 10 years of your life, you meditate even say 75% of those days. You're gonna be pretty blissed out. You're gonna see a lot of amazing benefits. What about with the gym? The gym doesn't have to be all or nothing. What if you go to the gym 2 to 4 days a week for the next year? Sometimes 4, sometimes 2, sometimes nothing. But on average, 2 to 4 days a week. You're going to be freaking ripped up. You're going to be lean. You're going to be strong. You're going to see a major difference. But most people I've talked to, for some reason, have this unrealistic standard of perfect consistency. And that is why it becomes this all or nothing thing. And that's why it's full force, full speed ahead. And then inevitably, life throws you a curveball, which it's pretty good at doing that, isn't it? And then you don't do it. And what makes this even worse is because of this all or nothing mentality, many people, not only do they like struggle on a practical level, which I did my best to explain, but they start to judge themselves so harshly. I'm so weak-willed. I don't have what it takes. I don't have discipline. I lack severely self-control. And you start to just overlay your already battered identity with all these layers of judgment and criticism. And then, of course, it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? But none of that's true. Sometimes our expectations are the problem. I had a psychic one time, this guy named Kevin, awesome dude from Michigan. And he said that to me, and he said it kind of carefully. He said, Victor, because this is me, by the way. I'm not above this. These are patterns I played out for years. But anyway, Kevin sort of pointed it out. He said, how did he say it? He said it in a way that was kind of interesting, that was almost off-putting. He said, don't necessarily always shoot for the stars or something. He kind of said, like, listen, it's good to pursue things and go for it, but your expectations are sometimes very, very unrealistic. And because of that, you're exceptionally hard on yourself and you cause yourself a lot of completely unnecessary pain. And it also leads to like less of you reaching your potential anyways. He's like, go easy on yourself. So why is that so hard? I don't know. You let me know if you find out that answer. But the point is, I became aware of that. I became aware of how unnecessarily hard on myself I had been. And I started to kind of see how this was affecting my projects, my endeavors, my attempts. I too was creating this all or nothing thing. And it was leaving me not only unproductive, but also really unhappy with myself. And the key for me, and what I've seen with other people, the room for the breakthrough is not more discipline, less laziness. It's more compassion, more patience with yourself, more self-love, which is just this word that people throw around. I mean like real self-love, not this thing you just say in the mirror, but I mean like you catch yourself when you're being hard on yourself, and then in that moment you choose not to. You choose to do something a little bit differently. And I found that when we can do this, we stop creating these all or nothing scenarios and we just simply do our best. I've successfully meditated for the past like 10, 15 years, maybe more. I'd say 6 out of 7 days, roughly. And I don't mean like literally 6 out of 7 days. I take a day off and that's how it's been. No, I mean like I have phases where it's every day and then I get off track. I have times where I'm really motivated, and those times I meditate longer, and it's like I'm really into it, really like spiritually hungry. And then I have times where oftentimes after that I get to like a nice place, and then like I can coast for a while, but not too long. Then the ego starts coming back and I have to get back to it. But the point is, no longer am I like hard on myself. No longer do I judge myself. I just do my best on each and every day. And another thing that can help with this is to kind of trust. I think one of the fundamental flaws of being quote unquote consistent is that it completely takes out the reality that life is extremely inconsistent. Alan Watts, you probably know Alan Watts. He has kind of a funny way of putting this. He would say that life, if you think about it, and I'm seeing it right now looking out my window at the different trees, life is wiggly. Wiggly. Like go into nature and try to find me a bunch of right angles and straight lines and boxes and things like that. You don't see that. But our minds are not wiggly. They're not very flexible. And then we like to impose and overlay upon this inherently wiggly reality our linear, limited, conceptual, mental stuff. And that's why if you look at like New York City or the architecture, there's a lot, even this room, there's lines, everything's very like, this desk is a perfect rectangle and everything's very like, fixed, rigid. And then, so too with our consistency. I'm going to wake up or on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon, I'm going to film a YouTube video and I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to do it for a year because I know if I can do this for a year, it's going to advance me on my YouTube channel and I'm going to feel great about myself. But then that's like, do you have your whole year planned out? Are there no vacations? Are you doing any traveling? Do you ever get sick? Do your children ever need tending to? Does your dog eat something and you have to rush them to the vet at noon? Like, you don't know. These things are going to happen. So I've learned, my point is, when things like literally block me from doing something, I've come to trust that. I've come to, at the very least, do my best to accept it. And that allows me, when the road finally clears, to get back at it. I talked to this beautiful, this sweet woman just yesterday, and she's wanting to be like kind of do what I do, like a YouTuber, and start an online business. And I could tell she felt so bad, and she said, I lost my momentum. She said, I was doing so good, Vic. You wouldn't even believe it, bro. I was doing so good. I was taking action. I was doing all the stuff you say, but then someone close to me passed away. And she had just tears in her eyes. And I could tell it was so obvious that she was just still grieving. It was someone really close to her. But her question was, how do I get back at it? I lost my consistency. I lost my momentum. How do I get back at it? And what I addressed was not that. I said, listen, it's okay to take time for yourself. I shared with her a reference of a friend of mine named Lior Alexandra. You may have seen her on YouTube. She's an amazing woman. And she's very successful, very, very hardworking lady. And now she's a mother. But anyway, she's got like probably 500,000 or more followers on YouTube, which requires discipline, hard work, consistency, overtime, etc. But what I've always admired about Lior is she allows herself to kind of flow with the wiggly nature of life. She'll take breaks sometimes. I've seen her like just disappear from like her huge online presence on Instagram, YouTube, or email, newsletter list, all huge, hundreds of thousands of people. And she'll just not show up for a while, not because she doesn't care, but because she's honoring her own needs. There's times when in life you got to fill your cup. And if you don't fill your cup and you try to stay consistent, even if you force it, it's not sustainable anyways. But the quality diminishes to the point where it doesn't even do you any good anyways. So anyways, I referenced Lior to this woman. I said, listen, you're right. If you stop taking action, if you stop going to the gym, if you stop doing something, momentum does cease. That is true. That's like a fact of life. It's like a law of inertia. At the same time, that's going to happen. It's not about never having that happen. It's about maybe trusting when that does happen, there might be a reason. And that reason might actually benefit you in the end if you can yield to it. It's like I give the analogy sometimes of like a race car. I don't watch like races where they race around a track. But what you see sometimes, you probably know this, is it's kind of like, most people know this, every so often, maybe every, say, 50 laps around the track, they pull over into the little pit stop area, and then a team comes out with their wrenches and they change the tire, whatever it is they do, I don't know. but they do a bunch of stuff to the car. And meanwhile, they're out of the race, and other cars are lapping them. They continue their consistency, but the driver wouldn't do that if they really thought it was a bad idea. They do that knowing that in the end, when they get to kind of come back with like a revamped car or whatever it is that happens, it's going to actually add to their productivity. And I find that sometimes life will do this for you. Life will take you out of your rigid little routine, usually to teach you something, oftentimes to ensure that you stay rested and fill your cup. Maybe you need that downtime to tend to your own needs, like grief or something. Maybe that downtime, or maybe that day off, maybe that break from your pattern is exactly what you need to get the download, the $1 million breakthrough insight that you will not get when you are too focused on the mechanics of your action each and every day. And the final, I would say, pillar to what we'll say a relative consistency is patience. I'm notoriously impatient, and I tend to attempt oftentimes to progress faster than is ideal. But what happens a lot of times when we do that is that we stop enjoying ourselves. And if what you're doing is just this drudgerous activity, even strong-willed, stubborn people can only sustain that for so long. And I see this all the time, unfortunately, with my business clients. People want to be a YouTuber, people want to be a writer, people want to be a healer or a coach, because for a lot of reasons, it's their destiny and purpose, but also it's enjoyable. It's fun. It's fun to create. I'm enjoying myself right now. It's fun to work on this legacy. And what a lot of times people will do is they'll be at like the earlier stages, and they'll look around at all the people who are like much further ahead, and they'll try to get themselves there. And they end up taking on too much too soon. And this thing that used to be very enjoyable for them, or at least could be enjoyable, it becomes like this horrible thing. It reminds me when I used to be a medical marijuana grower, and I will never forget the first time I saw an indoor grow room. It was at my friend's house in Florida. I walked into their apartment, and I had no idea what I was walking into. And I noticed there was like a lot of light coming through this one door. And I said, "What the hell's going on over there?" And they said, "You want to see?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I was quite curious. I've never seen that bright of light from like an indoor, frame of a door ever in my life. And they opened the door, and I literally was speechless. I thought it was the most badass thing I've ever seen in my life. They had all this, what's known as mylar, which is kind of like a really thin mirror-like film. Mylar was all around the room. It was just very bright. All these like expensive looking lights with tubes and fans, and these beautiful plants that were probably at like a month old. These nice, stout, stocky little plants, and they looked so healthy, so perfect. And it was a hydroponic system, so there was all these different tubes of water and nutrients, and they showed me how you check the pH levels. They had this like long device that you stick in the water. And it was like they were a mad scientist. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. I have to be a part of it. And then one day I was. About a year later, my one friend kind of helped me set myself up. And it was as enjoyable as I thought. And then over the years, I've kind of been off and on with it. And then one time, later on down the line, as I got better at growing, I linked up with another friend who had an investor. And this dude bought us a building, like a 7,000 square foot building. And we were doing this now like sort of professionally. And we had this massive grow operation with hundreds of plants. And it was like this whole thing. But at that time, it became too big, too much. We were trying to grow too fast. And it was just nothing but stress, nothing but problems, putting out fires every day. Every little task that might have been done for a smaller size grow, it was multiplied times like 100. So it stopped being fun. And one time when I was sitting there with these guys trimming, which is kind of trimming your cannabis, your freshly grown cannabis is kind of like fun for the first 10 minutes. But we had 10 pounds or something that we had to hand trim because we didn't have a trimmer And we had like 8 people sitting around just beginning. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, we're looking at like a week of like 10-hour days, just slaving away, trimming. And then as this happened, I noticed water coming underneath one of the doors, just spilling into our room. And I knew exactly what it was because it's happened many times before. We have these big drums of like nutrient rich water. And sometimes you have to like refill it with a hose. And no one wants to stand there for like 30 minutes or so with the hose. So we put the hose in, we turn the water on, and we tell ourselves, I'm going to check back in 30 minutes. And we would always forget. And it would and you wouldn't know it until it starts to infiltrate whatever room you're in. So hundreds of gallons of water were just all over the floor, and you got to mop it up. You can't just leave it. And as I'm trimming, as I'm looking forth into like these 7 days of misery, I realized we have a good 2-hour spill to clean up, and it won't be the last one. And it was like, that was my breaking point. That was when I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm miserable. I hate this. I want nothing to do with it. And it's because the dosage was off. The amount, the quantity, the speed, the attempted rate of progress was so far off. For a long time, it stopped becoming fun. So a lot of times people set themselves up for like an inevitable failure, or at the very least a ceasing of their perfect linear progress, because they're trying to go too quickly, trying to take on too much. You know this is you if it's you. And I know it's hard to leave your work unfinished. It's hard. It's hard to accept that it's going to take a lot longer than I want. But if you can accept that, you can enjoy the journey. You can enjoy the process. And trust me, I've done this and it works. I've accomplished things I never thought I'd be able to. You know, when I first started my YouTube channel, I was not good on camera. I had no idea what I was doing. So when I hit the 100,000 follower mark, it was amazing to me. I was like, oh my God, that was a tangible evidence that what I'm saying works. But my point is, do you know how I felt when that happened? Great. For like a few minutes. Got my little plaque over there. In fact, you know what? I went for years not even getting my plaque until my friends were like, why don't you have your plaque? Get your plaque. I was like, I don't even care. I didn't care about the plaque. I didn't care about the accomplishment because it was not nearly as I had hyped it up in my mind. So even you're working hard for something, and I ask you, what do you think is going to really happen when you get there? That life is going to be wonderful and it's going to be great and it's going to... No. Your mind will very quickly adapt. There's like a hedonic adaptation or something like that. There's a term for this where you quickly... The 100,000 followers to me is like normal. It's no different feeling than 0 subscribers. It's normal. And now within a day, my mind set up on 200,000, 1 million. Now that's where I need it. Now, once I get to 1 million, then I'll be good. Well, no, that's not true. My friend Aaron Dowdy hit 1 million followers on YouTube. You may have seen him. Same thing. It was less satisfying than 100,000 followers, he said. It's like nothing. So my question is, what's the point of racing in the first place? Where are you trying to get? I was always trying to get somewhere. And every time I got there, it was disappointing. And I realized, boy, you were so hell-bent on getting somewhere, you missed the journey. Patience allows you to enjoy the journey. It's something I know you've heard said. Enjoy the journey. It's all about the journey. Yeah, I'll start enjoying the journey once I get to where I need to get, was my mentality. But it turns out it's very true. My friend, in summary, if you can stop looking at this as an all or nothing thing and do your best every day, knowing some days will be much better and more productive than others. Everything's in flux. Your motivation, circumstances, everything's in flux, and that's okay. It's life. And if you can trust that, if you can let go of trying to control the process and trust, you can continue on long enough, which will require patience, which will also allow you to enjoy it. And this thing that might have been this huge mountain to climb of being consistent can finally settle into you just being who you are as best you can every single day. And within that, you can be grateful. You can stay alert and present with your activities. And with this attitude, what you'll find, ironically, is you'll manifest your goals a lot faster than before anyways, but it almost becomes a practice to not attach too much to these victories. You will start to rack up because you know they are not it. They are not it. Every lifetime can be boiled down to like each moment. And each moment we have a choice in how we choose to spend it. We can choose it trying to will ourselves to the next moment, or we can realize the abundance of each and every moment. And we can have peace and we can have happiness. This is just a practice for me. This is not something I've mastered, but I take it very seriously. I do my best to live by what I'm saying, and it has helped tremendously. And I've seen it change many people's lives. So I wish you well with it, my friend. Take it or leave it. I'll see you all next time. Have an amazing day. Peace.